Good evening, and welcome to Carl's Crafts. As I've been building this Lowboy over the past few weeks, I've run into many obstacles. I've had trouble building the ramps on the front of the frame. I've had troubles getting the curves of the frame, and as we went through our processes, we were able to identify how to make that happen, as well as why those things are like that in the first place. So that's always good to know, isn't it? Well, that leads me to today's question. Why are there extrusions, so to speak, on the back of the Lowboy frame? Really what it does is it allows you to have a strong surface on the rear in which you can place additional items. You can strap them down so that way you can tow even more than you can on the flat bed of the Lowboy trailer. So why is there a cutout between the rails? Why does it drop down? Well, they don't all do that. Some of them do. And you'll see that on the Fontaine Magnitude 55H, that drops down as well. That's one of those trailers that does. And what this does is this allows room for your excavator's boom or other oversized pieces of equipment to get those extra few inches in case there's height restrictions, to lower their trailers, lower their equipment. And that leads us to tonight's project, which is completing the rear end of the Lowboy frame. I'm going to have some parts to do, so join me for special appearances by Carl, the Angry Pixies, and Overkill as we complete this project together. So, now, I got a question. I got Carl here on the other end. What are you doing here tonight? Well, Carl, thanks for having me here tonight, first of all. Really, what I'm going to be doing here today is collaboration between myself, the Angry Pixies, and Overkill. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and convince some steel to glue itself together. How are you going to do that? Well, you see here, steel is very strong metal. And it likes to just do its own thing, right? It just is what it is. Well, I've learned that the Angry Pixies are good, and what they'll do is they'll anger that steel too. They'll fight with it, and they'll just make it turn to a liquid, and it'll just give up, and then you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, well that makes sense. So what's the first thing you have to do? Well, the first thing I gotta do is I gotta cut the steel, and that's where I use my friend Overkill. He'll be coming in, he'll help us, and he spins at a really high rate of speed and just grinds away at that stuff. Okay, so you're going to be cutting metal. Yes, Carl, that's what I'm going to be doing. Well, that sounds pretty straightforward. Why are we going to have that on tonight's episode? Really, it's an all-around fun time. Oh, well, thanks, Carl. I look forward to seeing you again later this episode, along with Overkill and the Angry Pixies. So now I believe we have some footage. Yes, we absolutely do. Would you mind describing the video as we roll the footage? Absolutely, Carl. That sounds fantastic. It looks like in this shot what we're doing is measuring the back bumper. Yes, Carl. That's exactly what we're doing here. And trim them down so they're not too short. Oh, well, that's great. That makes perfect sense. What do you do after you measure the first one? I want them to be the same. So the easiest way they are the same is if I cut the first one and then use the first one as a guide to make the second one. It looks like you have your two pieces cut. That's right, I do, Carl. Okay, yeah. So after that, then what, you have to do the bumper, you said? And how I gotta do that is the 1 inch high is not gonna be the same because the front is gonna have a slight taper. So I'm gonna have to bend it up a little bit different. And it's going to need to be a little taller than the 1 inch on that flange. So really I'm going to make it look like a number 7. Okay. Well, how much longer are you going to make it? You know, Carl, at this point, I'm not sure. So if you're just doing that, it doesn't sound like you have any plans or anything. How do you make sure that this gets done? When I set my mind to something, Carl, I just do it. Well, that sounds quite difficult. I find it a lot easier because when you're putting a puzzle together, you gotta find the right pieces, right? And that's really what I'm doing. I'm putting a puzzle together. Only problem is I don't have pieces. So I'm just gonna make those pieces however they need to be to fit. That does sound easier when you say it like that. Right. Thanks, Carl. So it sounds like you must do a lot of work in the garage. Oh yes, Carl. I'm always working in the garage. I like to get home from work and then I'll just go out to the garage and then I'll work in the garage. Well, that sounds like it's demanding. Do you ever find yourself talking to yourself in the garage? No, Carl. Of course not. That'd be crazy. Once I have those two parts made, I'm going to need to cap the ends of them. So that's probably what you can see right now. I'm not really sure though. I lost my video feed over here. But I'm just going to trace those pieces and weld them on the ends, cap them up nice and solid. Now that you have those end caps made, what's the next thing you're going to be doing? Well, Carl, I think I'm going to move on to welding things back on the frame. I squared up the rear of the deck to the frame and I'm about to weld that on. Once I get that welded on, I'm going to continue to weld on all those other supports that I had previously made for that rear end. And of course, once I weld on those back pieces of the frame, then I got to put on some little traction bars just like the ramp's got on them. Yeah, when I had all the back bumpers welded on there, I had to go ahead and shrink the front because I realized it had bent and started sagging towards the rear again with all my welding along the rear of the mud flaps. So I had to go back and do some more little beads along the bend so I could get it to lift that tail end back up. Wow, well, it looks like you did some really nice work there. Thanks, Carl. And thanks for coming in today. It was really a treat having you here. Yeah, no problem, Carl. Thanks for having me. And thank you again, world, for tuning in tonight. Tune in next time for more weird stuff.